With the start of Prohibition in 1918, the rise of crime skyrocketed. Detroit was the center place for these crimes, to being so close to Canada. At the time, many people smuggled alcohol to the States via waterways. Financial motivation had shopkeepers investing in underground businesses. By 1925, Detroit had approximately 25,000 blind pigs, or as the world knows it, speakeasies, and the number of gambling houses and brothels were high. These businesses were run by mobsters, gunmen, drug dealers, and hijackers, as well as organized gangs. During this time, the Purple Gang was formed and rose to power in Detroit in 1929. Recognized as the rulers of Detroit's underworld, the gang stood out due to the fact that the majority of its members were teenagers. Most of the Purple Gang were the children of Jewish Russian immigrants that moved to Detroit to rebuild their lives. It is said that the gang got their name from shopkeepers who were victims of their early violence. They would say, "They're rotten, purple, like the color of bad meat. They're a Purple Gang." The Purple Gang was originally formed because individual Purple Gang members faced exclusion and segregation from an early age. The original core group of members were sent to the Old Bishop's School, a separate school for different children in the Detroit's districts, who were expelled from other schools for fighting. At this school, they encountered isolation by being placed in the school's ungraded section. Students in the other sections of the school were referred to as the normal students, while the peers placed in the ungraded sections were treated differently and not expected to improve. Because of this, the outsider mentality was formed as a byproduct of religion and social ostracism, and the roots of the Purple Gang were formed. When they were young and just starting out, they focused on small crimes including stealing food and money. But throughout the 1920s, as they grew older, they turned to more organized, dangerous crime. The launch of Prohibition only ignited their efforts. In the early years of Prohibition, sugar houses provided corn sugar from home brewers who were allowed to brew a set amount of liquor for personal use. The sugar houses were valuable resources for illegal stills and breweries, and one of the biggest, the Oakland Sugar House, was controlled by mobsters. The Purple Gang was known for its participation in the sugar houses. When bootleggers smuggled alcohol across the border by using the frozen Lake St. Clair, the Purple Gang would stop and hijack the vehicles on the frozen river and killing the driver and stripping them of their load. This became a signature move of the gang. The profits from bootlegging and rum running were high, and their power was only growing. The police turned their back to much of their activity. They secured immunity from Detroit's police because almost all of their victims were too afraid to testify against such a petrifying gang. As the gang's reputation spread across Detroit, other well-known gangsters decided to join the group, ultimately mentoring the younger members and taking them under their wing to become a father figure for these boys. The older group members delegated the responsibility to the younger, non-important members. In turn, the boys got teachers and mentors and the recognition they desperately needed. The strong unity and increase in organization from the gang made local industries and other bootleggers want to utilize the gang for scare tactics. The Purple Gang became involved with several organized labor disturbances, such as the Mila Flores Massacre, the Collingwood Manor Massacre, and the Cleaner and Dryer War. The Cleaners and Dryers War was one of the gang's early collaborative rebellions between Purple Gang and a local industry. This was just the start of the wars against smaller businesses because the Purple Gang was used to enforce union policy. Anyone who refused to join the union had their employee plants vandalized and bombed, and had their union business agent murdered, and their employments were forced out of business. Throughout their time in power, the gang members continued to help associations involved in anti-prohibition efforts within the city of Detroit. The gang was widely recognized both publicly and underground, which influenced several criminals to join them instead of working against them. Although, as the group gained momentum, inter-gang violence emerged, and jealousies and egos eventually caused the gang to self-destruct. By the time 1935 rolled around, the Purple Gang shattered from the inside out, and the members began murdering and betraying each other, leading to long-term prison sentences without hope for parole. It is estimated that over the course of their time in power, there were over 150 members associated with the Purple Gang. By 1933, they were no longer the dominant ethnic underground force, and the Italian gangs gained power over them. On May 11, 1933, beer was legalized again. 7 months later, on the day before New Year's Eve, manufacturing and sale of liquor was legalized in Michigan, causing the Purple Gang to lose many followers. After the legalization of alcohol, the Italians began to overpower the Purple Gang. The members who were not in prison or dead dispersed into independent groups. They named Purples and continued to operate from the early 1930s through 1950s. After escaping criminal charges for so many years, who would have guessed that this famous gang would have self-destructed and destroyed each other from the inside out, and never to be seen again in Detroit?